Everyone, welcome to Visible Kindness. I'm your host, Ed Squire, and today we're going to explore what it means to live with bipolar disorder. Many of my friends and people who follow me on Facebook probably know why I'm doing this episode, because I had a manic bipolar episode on Friday, less than a week ago, ended up in the hospital. I've never talked about the mental health challenges that I have ever, because I've never wanted people to think about me as someone who has mental health issues. I have spent my life being someone that I wanted people to think about me. Oh my gosh, it is horrible. And I spent the last year working very hard just to be authentic and be myself, which is a great place to be. I need to do an episode just on that. But today we're going to talk about, for the first time for me, bipolar, what it means to experience that, and how to manage this mental health issue, where it comes from. I'm going to talk about the story about what happened to me last Friday when I went to emergency from my doctor's office. And I want to talk about how we can foster a greater understanding towards this and empathy towards those who are navigating life with this condition, because there are millions of people. I think people feel embarrassed about it. I know that survivors, that's another topic. But people who suffer from bipolar can experience big time challenging issues. This has been major in my life. This has been so big in my life. It has impacted my job. It is actually the reason why I lost my job. So hang in there. How is that possible? So I'm also going to dive into what life has been like for me. I'm going to talk about what it is, and then I'm going to talk about how it's affected my life. So I have never spoken publicly about this before. So it's this topic is deeply personal for me and for many people. And I just want to step into this space. As a matter of fact, I want to step into spaces like this all the time now. I'm just so not worried or thinking about what other people think about me anymore. That definitely needs to be an episode. But this is very important, and it's a huge topic. So whether you're living with bipolar yourself, whether you have it or you know someone who is, or if you want to educate yourself, or if you're involved with supporting and helping people with bipolar, I think this is an episode that will help a lot of people. So that's my goal, is to provide insights and strategies for navigating the mental health condition, because I've been doing it for a long time. I've had bipolar since I was a child. It came to me from being abused, and I had no idea that I had bipolar. It's been about 10 years now since I've understood it, been on medication for it, and all these things, which I'll talk about near the end of the show. So let's get started. What is bipolar disorder? Bipolar disorder is a mental health condition. Look at the way I look at myself when I'm recording this. Like, many of you may be listening to it through audio, but I'm looking at myself because the camera's on me. I'm looking at myself. I'm going, as I'm speaking, it's a mental health condition that is like characterized by what? Life is a challenge for me, but it's extreme mood swings. I want to tell you, I'm not having an episode right now. I have a personality that has, I would say, 80% high energy and 20% not, because you have to be normal. Which, does that mean not high energy? But I am who I am. But for me to have bipolar and then have that to be extreme mood swings, it's a huge challenge for me. It can be what's called manic or hypomanic. And I'm going to talk about that too. Or it can be very depressive. And that is also a challenge. So these shifts can significantly impact a person's energy levels and their ability to think clearly and day-to-day functioning. So it can seem like I'm having a great time, having a high energy episode, but it's not. It is not. And I'm going to explain what happened to me on Friday, that I had my episode for like 4 days straight, and people in public noticed it, and it was incredible. I never did. So I'm going to break this thing down. So when it comes to manic episodes, I want to talk about that, because these are like periods of abnormally elevated moods, energies, or irritabilities. And that's not good. That's what caused me to lose my job. It was around 10 years ago. Incredible. And what I tell you at the end of this episode of what happened to me last week, it's a teeny tiny bit of me being upset, and being irritable. I get all of this. Energy, irritability, elevated mood, it depends. When you're having a mania, you can also feel like euphoric on risky behaviors. I lived like that for decades and did not know why, never even wondered why. I just thought it was this is who I was. But when you are risking yourself on risky behaviors, which can be all kinds of things, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Racing thoughts is also a huge experience. I have huge racing thoughts because I have ADHD. So sometimes I'm like, is this an ADHD situation or is this, bipolar situation? And then I've got complex post-traumatic stress disorder and clinical depression on top of it. I need to do episodes on all these. And this is kindness towards myself for sure. And it's also kindness towards other people. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, whoever you are, if you're a friend or a family or a relative, or you have it, or if you're involved in this space as a caretaker or a mental health person, this is great information. To see somebody with bipolar standing on this, right? And I've learned to do this. So when it comes to, I want to talk about the depressive side for a minute. So it's intense sadness, hopelessness, and low energy. And that is so incredible. I was never aware of this until I was diagnosed with it. So how can you go from really high to really low like that when there's nothing wrong in my life? My life is fine. But I go into these massive, deep hopelessness places. And I know that people would look at me and go, why do you feel hopeless? You're such a talented person. And I'm saying this not because I think people say this. My friends tell me this, and I've had people say this because I've spoken at events. I've done so many things. You know this. I'm doing a podcast right now. And everything is great. How can I go from this to hopelessness? Not just sad, right? Or like, how does that happen? It's because of serious mental health issues. And I suffer through 4 of them, which is incredible. And go to low energy. How do I, as a person who has a high energy personality without, a manic episode, how do I go to being low energy? Well, we're going to talk about that more. So let's talk about the types of disorder. There's actually 3 types, bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and there's another one called, and I struggle with this, Google it, I'm telling you, cyclothymic, I can't remember it. It's cyclosomethingimic, and so each of these have varying levels of intensity and frequency of mood swings. 1 and 2 or more. I don't know if the word popular is the right word, but the psychothymic one is not as common. So when I talk about bipolar 1 and 2, I have bipolar 2. So when it comes to bipolar, and before I dig into that, I just want to mention on a higher level. And the reason why I'm doing this episode is because there are so many people that have this. It's like it's almost 3% of adults in the U.S. that have this each year, and it's not just moodiness or having a bad day. We all have that. It is complicated. It's a complex condition. It is biological. It's genetic, and it's informational. It is environmental issues in a person's life that impacts them and causes them to have a bipolar episode. So what is the day-to-day experience of having this mental health issue? The experience can feel like an emotional freaking roller coaster. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I'm not having an episode. I should be a comedian. And I'm happy to be here. But the experience can be like being on an emotional roller coaster. It's like it's unpredictable, and it is sometimes extremely exhausting. And half the time I'm not aware of it. Actually, most of the time I'm not aware of it until something happens. So when it comes to the highs, during a manic episode, you might feel invincible. And that's not a good thing either. That's a big reason why I lost my ability to work at my job, which is something else I've never talked about. Most people didn't even know I was on disability. Yeah, it's an incredible story. I don't know if I'll ever get into the details on a podcast like this, but it's in my documentary, in my book that's coming out. Because I want to talk about this. I want people to be aware of it, because so many people suffer from this, and either they're not getting help, or if they are getting help, it makes a difference. It sure has for me, being involved in a community and knowing people that understand and care and love about me. So that's the thing, right? So when you have this high, your creativity just slows down. And it's so funny because I'm a highly creative person. I mean, all this, if you've ever looked at the content that I create, I have like 4 YouTube channels, Me Too, What Now, Visible Kindness, I have a podcast, I've created tons of reels on my YouTube channel, everywhere. I create really great stuff. It's so interesting. Not sincerely, but seriously, I watch my own content often because I find it so great. It's just so, I've never told anyone that. I find it so entertaining or interesting, and sometimes it's serious. I'm a great creator when it comes to filmmaking and video making, but my creative flows hit the complete bottom of the barrel, and I'm nothing. I can't do anything. I can't. So if I'm taking on a project, it comes to a complete halt, and it can spiral into like poor decision making, round and round and round, or complete burnout. This is what my life has been, not only all my life, but it has been much worse since I sued the school board back in Canada, and one of my abusers, who was a teacher. When I did that, I suffered a lot of mental health issues. And burnout was 100% the issue. So that's the highs and a bit of the lows. But when I want to talk directly to the depressive side, because a lot of the high energy episodes happen in my life, but the depressive ones, they do too. And they're debilitating. It's like simple tasks, like, I don't even want to say this, getting out of bed, right? It's like, or taking a shower, or cleaning your dishes. I'm a very cleanly person. Like, if I was going to show you around my place, it's very organized, but you just lose all of the abilities and the ambitions to do simple tasks. Very, very frustrating. Very frustrating. But nobody sees it. That's the interesting thing. Nobody sees this. It's something we deal with on our own. So in between episodes, people that have bipolar also have periods of stability, which can be a time that we recharge and we reflect, I like my in-between times. I wish they happened more often. And I'm being silly. I'm not being, that's not serious. That's not how often that happens to me, but it's really essential to understand that there are no two experiences that are identical for not survivors. You have to remember too, I had a massive brain surgery at the end of June and beginning of July, and I'm still in the recovery process for that. So half the time I'm like, is this bipolar? Am I having a depressed episode? Am I having a CPTSD episode, complex post-traumatic stress disorder? Is this and then I go, oh, is this because I'm still recovering from my brain surgery? I have learned this year, before and after my brain surgery, to relax, not worry about it, and just take one day at a time. Be who you are. Be authentic. Take one day at a time. That is the best thing I could have ever done in all of this, because there's no answer to that question. So all of this, it helps a person define their worth and their intelligence or their potential. When you suffer from these things, how do you do that? You do it because you take one day at a time. Let's talk about some of the strategies and some of the how we manage bipolar disorder effectively, and what does, there is no one size fits all. I don't know if you've clearly understood that so far. There is no one size fits all. There's tools that can be in place and methods, and I'm not going to go into details, but I'm going to do my best to help people who suffer from this have a life-changing experience from just listening to this podcast, because that's what it's all about. So number one is going to be, I hate to say it, not everybody agrees with this, medication. I'm on medication for it. Some people don't believe that. You got to take your own journey. I am absolutely on medication for it. There's like mood stabilizers, there's antipsychotics. I'm not on antipsychotics, which is not a bad thing if you need antipsychotics, or antidepressants. I'm not on antidepressants either. I've tried a ton of that. In my documentary, you're going to see how many different types of drugs I've taken over the years, just over the last decade. Unreal what I've experienced in this process, and to finally nail it down to what actually works for me. It's much less than what I used to take as far as the number of different types, because I've taken everything. I've actually taken antipsychotics and antidepressants, all these things. But I'm now on what are called mood stabilizers, which it's working for me. And you know, I cannot do this on my own. I cannot, like, you know, it's working with a psychiatrist, and my psychiatrist, my mental health therapist, my family doctor. I have an entire team of people that are helping me do this. I'm grateful that I can have the opportunity to afford to be in that, even when I don't have a job. Another one is therapy, which I mentioned. So the first one is medication. The second one is therapy, which I just kind of mentioned a little bit. But it's like having, when I say therapy, it's like not just having a mental health therapist, it's understanding the different types of therapy and forms of counseling that can help you provide coping mechanisms and help us to address the emotional challenges of bipolar. What is a big challenge for me is either not being aware, or even if I'm not aware, it's like putting into place these practices. I struggle with it. I have so much stuff. I just finished a course on how to do. Hang on, I got the book here. If you're listening, you can't see it, but it's called the Dialectical Behavior Therapy Skills Workbook. Like, who's going to remember that name? Dialectical Behavioral Therapy Workbook. And it is so good. It teaches you how to, I'm going to read it because I can't remember. It teaches you how to, it's called Practical DBT Exercises for Learning Mindfulness, Interpersonal Effectiveness, Emotional Regulation, and Distress Tolerance. It is good. I've actually done it twice. I did it once with my mental health therapist, and then I took a class, which just wrapped up, and it has been so healthy. And I wish I was the type of person who was at the stage where I've done this and I've done that, and here's where I'm at, and you can do it too. It's not. I'm paddling. Okay, I'm paddling through this. And I know a lot of other people are paddling. Millions of people are paddling. And so we need to develop coping mechanisms. And I'm trying the best I can. So there's medications, I just mentioned briefly, and then therapy, which I mentioned briefly. There's more I can talk about. I've been in group therapy, single, double, quadruple. That's not true. But I've been in group therapy for sure with just men, and that's been good. I've been in group therapy with men and women. That's been good. So therapy is very good, very important. And then the third one is routine. So what does routine mean? Why am I doing a podcast about everything I'm struggling with? It's having a structured daily schedule. What's interesting, I was talking to my psychiatrist yesterday, and I said, I'm so frustrated because, I mean, I used to, my job that I had before I did this, as many of you know, I was a high-end consultant for Fortune 500 companies. I mean, I consulted on a business level, at a high business level, with C-level management, right? So that's CIOs, CEOs, CFOs, vice presidents in companies like, Wells Fargo, Pepsi-Cola Global, Boeing Corporation, billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies in Europe. Think about that. I went from that, making a very decent six-figure income, to losing everything because of mental health. I could not do it anymore. And I did it for years. In order to do that, I had to keep a schedule. And before I had my brain surgery, I do like many people do. I have a book where it has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on there. And I write all down my personal tasks, business tasks, things I need to do, schedule, timing, everything. And I can't do it right now. For some reason, I can't do it. I'm struggling to put routine in my life. doing this podcast is a struggle. As a matter of fact, successful people that do podcasts, they say you need to do a podcast every week or twice a month or this. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm doing what I can. That's all I can do. So when the next episode comes out, I hope you enjoy it. When's it going to be? I don't know. I'm good. I do one and then I do the next one. That's the best I can do. And what's important is not what is my audience thinks. People think I should do it more often. No, it's, am I happy with what I'm doing? And am I doing the best I can? That's what it is. As far as routine goes, like that's just daily routine. And then it's doing things like having good, consistent sleep. That's a big thing for me. I've got a watch, like a lot of people do. Mine is not an Apple Watch. I don't want one. Mine is I can't remember the name of it, but it tracks my sleep. It tracks my exercise. And so it's good to manage my sleep. So that means, don't eat after a certain time, lower your, build what's called a sleep hygiene. And I'm actually doing that quite well, because after like, this is late for me. This is like what, where's the clock? It is 10 after 5. Usually from 4 o'clock on, nothing. At the most, I'll do something from 4 to 5 and that's it. I don't do anything to do with social media or work after 4 o'clock. So it's good to have schedules, consistent sleep, meals, healthy meals, and activities, which I struggle with. Because this is another thing. Why am I even mentioning this? Many of you know that I have, I've always been a high end. I've always been big time. That's a better word. Big time downhill skier and hiker and mountain biker. And for some reason, I've had this issue with my knees for several years. And come to find out, I needed brain surgery to fix my knees. That's a whole different exercise or explanation. But got the brain surgery done, fixed my legs, but now something weird is happening with my legs as well. So I'm in tremendous pain and I can't have regular physical activities, which is a whole nother journey that I'm on. Very difficult, especially when you need good activities like that, when you have mental health issues like I do. And these all help to not to remove, that would be nice, to reduce mood swings. And then support. Have a system for support. Surround yourself, like I do this well, with, and actually I think they do it. I shouldn't say I do it. They've done it for me because they know I struggle. So I have very good friends, very good family members. I have peer groups that are involved in my life, and it makes a huge world of difference for me. I'm not embarrassed. I could not get through my life without having friends and family and people that support me. All of us are like that, even if you're healthy on every level. So I always say, don't hesitate to lean into people that can help you, people who do care about you. And the last thing is having self-awareness. And that book I just talked about, it's big on self-awareness. I love that. Am I doing it? No, but I will. And journaling, having a mood journal. What's interesting is I kept a journal for many years as I was going through the worst, oh my gosh, horrible times in my life and good times in my life. And I ended up having like about 2 inches thick of journals that I wrote. And then I decided to go to electronic. So I would either type into it or speak into it, which was even better. And I had years, months, and weeks and days where it was like a journal, electronic. So now I can go in and I can search on keywords like beer. How much did you drink? Like alcohol or anger or frustration or depression, or just the words that I use in the way I journal. I can do keyword searches, and it's so great. It's helping me write my book for sure. So having a mood journal, mine's a mood journal and every other kind of journal. It's just tracking my days with how I feel. It's been over the years. I'm glad I did that. But can really, helps us identify patterns in our lives, right? And recognize early about things that are impacting you. So this empowers me a lot, and I can be proactive with taking steps in the right direction. And so having healthy lifestyle choices are so important. I'm thinking a lot about it. I should not be thinking so much about it. I'm doing a podcast. But our emotional well-being is very, whether you have a mental health issue or not, it's important to look after yourself like this. And I know that because there's a huge industry out there of people that are healthy, and maybe they've overcome things. We've all overcome things, but there's a huge amount of the right words I'm looking for. There's a huge number of lifestyle coaches that are out there to help people, which is, I think, is fantastic. And you need to choose the type of coach that works for you, obviously. But it's finding the right combination of treatments and people and taking the time and having the patience and the persistence to push through these things. This is a good life comment, not just if you have bipolar, but this is life value activities. I'm not a coach. I think a coach would speak better than I do. I'm good on stage, not so good as a coach. Maybe down the road, I don't know. So let's shift gears. I want to talk about the stigma surrounding bipolar just for a few minutes and some of the misconceptions that are out there about bipolar. Like people with bipolar, like they're like very emotional, like you're just an emotional type of person or energetic type of person. I'm like, or you're unpredictable. I'm like, I'm all of those things. And I don't like being called all of those things because they're stereotypes and they can be harmful to other people and they can be isolating because I've felt that way a lot. So I just want to talk a little bit on breaking like the stigma and what people think and say, because I'm really big on what people think and say. I don't care what people think and say. I do, but not like I used to. When I used to worry and be concerned about that, it was like, what are they thinking about me? Now it's like, I am concerned in a sense when people hear or know that I have bipolar or I have mental health issues or even that I'm on disability. How do you manage yourself through that? How do you as someone who doesn't suffer from these things help someone or understand them? How do you, who suffers from these, do it? And the number one thing is education. Educate yourself, educate others. Like knowledge is power, not just in how to make money, which is interesting. I don't even care. I mean, I do care, but money is not the number one thing on my list. Myself is number one on the list. And then my family and friends, and then money comes way down. I never used to live that way. It was the very opposite. If you share accurate information like this, it helps dispel myths and, here's what people think. Another one is to be supportive. If someone shares their diagnosis with you, like I am right now, listen without judgment. I hope that's happening. I'm sure you're thinking all kinds of things about me. I'm just being silly, but having empathy goes a long way. I had a friend of mine invited me out to a Christmas event this week, and I told him, I said, I would love to go, but I don't do well in public at events. And that's something new for you. People I'm sure a lot of people that know me that are hearing this for the first time. I don't like going to public events. Now, if I'm going to a public event and I'm comfortable there, like I've been to where I'm speaking, I don't even have to be speaking, but if we're going to events that are like business events, I'm good there. But a public event for Christmas where I don't know these people or I'm in a public place, it's not good. It is not good for me. So I just don't go. I don't feel bad about it. But I would feel bad if I did go. So that's an important thing. Another one is advocacy for mental health and having resources. And that's a huge thing that also helps me so much. And I'm doing my best to put out. And so you support policies for survivors of survivors of childhood trauma and abuse and those who suffer from mental health. In organizations, I'm connected to so many organizations. I'm actually not connected to too many bipolar organizations, but I'm going to do that. I'm involved with organizations big time when it comes to childhood trauma and abuse. But I'm going to step into these areas as well because it's a big part of my life. All of these are, and they provide mental health care and awareness to those who walk in the same areas that I walk into. I just want to say, I'm just going to do one last thing, and I'm going to tell you what my life is like with bipolar. And when I prepared this episode, I was like, do I really want to do that? And I do. And I've already done this because when I had a manic episode last week and ended up in the hospital, I filmed a little bit when I was in the ambulance and in the hospital, and I took pictures and I made a 20-second video out of it. And I'm so glad that I did. I was so scared to publish something like that. And then I posted a massive long Facebook post explaining what had happened to me last week. That was so huge. And I was so scared. I really was to do that. But I got such positive response from everyone. There was nothing negative about what I did. And thank God I don't care or think about or be worried about. I shouldn't say I don't care. I don't worry about what people think about me. But this is it's a big step. So, I mentioned you I'm on disability. How did that happen? It's not an easy answer. I'm going to keep it short, but here we go. Remember I was talking about having manic episodes and you get triggered by something. So for me, what triggers me is, and you really need to understand what I'm about to say. Men trigger me, not all men, and not every time. I have a manic episode on average once a year, right? So, for example, I've had a trigger, but I didn't have an episode, which was good. I had a trigger, I'm out shopping, and a guy is beside me getting vegetables or fruit or whatever, and he sparked up a kind conversation. Hey, how's your day going? And I was just, something popped in my head. And I literally I turned and left because that was smart to do. That is so rare. That is the only time that's ever happened. But it happens with males because I was sexually abused by 3 different men. So in my hurt and in my pain and in my brain, that is still there. And I believe, thankfully, with so many people that are helping me and supporting me, this can be healed and go away. And I believe that. But it's a wild experience. Remember, it's only about once a year it happens to me. This year it actually happened twice. So I went to my doctor's and I had just a checkup, right? It's a 15-minute checkup. And when I got in there, she was about 15 minutes into my visit at the doctor. She says to me, Ed, are you okay? It would have been like, if you're listening to me now or seeing me on the video side of this and just saying, knock, 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 hey, Ed, are you okay? It would have been the same thing. I'm like, what do you mean, am I okay? And so I said to her, what do you mean, am I okay? I thought I felt fine. And she said to me, Ed, you're having a manic episode right now. And it hit me so hard. And so I began to think, what is happening here? And it hit me very hard, very strong that yes, I am having a manic episode. My energy and my feelings are like way high. And I started to realize I was in to see my doctor for 15 minutes and I was talking for 15 minutes at 3,000 miles per hour. I didn't even realize that. And she said, what has happened to you this week? Because she knows I have bipolar 2, something triggered me and it'll last 2, 3, 4 days. And so when I was driving home one day, some guy cut me off when I'm driving. I don't know, every day we all run into people who are driving that aren't good drivers. It doesn't bother me. As a matter of fact, if anything, I pray for people that are, not good drivers because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know. And so I'm actually a good driver. I drive the speed limit and I'm not bothered by other drivers. I just am not. I've worked very hard at that because it's important for me. But for some reason on Tuesday, some guy cut me off and the trigger just went boom. And I initially started to chase him down and I'm talking to myself saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? You need to pull over, take a break. But the emotional side of me is so high, I didn't even listen to my inner brain talking to me. And then she ended up calling an ambulance because you see, anyway, I ended up going to the hospital and got tested by the doctor. It was very good. I'm glad I went. It was very, very good. And yeah, that's a big thing. I want to tell you why I lost my job. So, because I was making so much money, doing so much work, everything was great, I began to burn out and I began to get emails from my boss, who's also a friend of mine, and telephone calls asking me, are you okay? I just realized that. He said the same thing to me. He said, Ed, I know you have ADHD and you take whatever it is meds for that. Are you taking your meds? I just want to know because you're a friend of mine and you work for me. I care about you as a friend, but I also care about you because there's been several incidents where, like, if a CEO or CIO doesn't like the consultant that was sent to them, and like me, they're not going to tell me that they don't like what I'm doing or why. They call my boss and say, "Who is this guy? He's not performing like we need." And when you're dealing with, this level of leadership in businesses, they don't waste their time, and they're not worried about what they say about you. And so this happened over just the last few years of working because I began to think about my past because I was being invited to speak at events that were connected to my trauma, which is a good thing to do. And I can do that now, and it's very different because I've healed a lot. But when I began to do that, it just brought up so much in me that these mental health conditions that had been with me for so many years came to the surface. And I had no idea that this was happening. So the things that caused the bipolar were the abuse, for sure. For me, it was not genetic. For me, it was not something physical in my brain. It was trauma. Abused by my step-grandfather, next-door neighbor, and my elementary school teacher. Speaking at events before I ever got help was not a good thing to do because I was invited to speak at events before I got help. And I did that because I thought it's a good thing to do. You need to deal with your past. Talk to people. If I get invited to speak, because I've spoken a lot in my life at events and things, I'll do that. And it did not go well. When I started getting mental health therapy, I was with this one lady for many years. She goes, "You should never have done that. You should never have done that." If you would have asked me, I would have said, "Don't do that." Now it's different because there's a lot of work I needed to do. And so I ended up suing the school system back in Canada. I did it publicly. I did it publicly for a reason because I want to make a difference in other boys' lives that were also abused by that teacher. And I filmed a lot of it. That's in my documentary. But all of this came piling down on me from a mental perspective. People did not see me that way. They thought I was doing good. But I wasn't. And it's only been until now that I've actually managed to have the strength to do what I'm doing right now. And I'm glad that I'm here now. I've put a tremendous amount of work into what I'm doing. So that was my Friday experience. And I'm glad I shared that with you. Yeah. So I want to bring this show to an end. I want to let you know I'm feeling fine. I'm doing very good. I'm going to be so proud of myself when I post this. And I do want to say that if you are living with bipolar, you got to know this. You're not alone. Your condition does not define who you are. And with the right tools and the support, you can live a fulfilling and meaningful life because we don't feel like we are getting those. I do now. And money has nothing to do with it because I don't really have any. I'm on disability. I'm working towards making money. It's a whole different thing. But I'm in a very good, healthy, meaningful place in my life. And I want to say to those who don't have bipolar, but you want help to understand, I want to thank you for listening this far and learning about this. In the coming days, I'm going to create more content about dealing with mental health issues because I like that idea and overcoming trauma. I'm going to be relaunching my Me Too What Now organization in February in my YouTube channel, and I'm going to let her rip. I'm going to go for it. So I like to say together, because when I do visible kindness, the whole thing is about creating a community. And I did okay at that, but I really want to create a community. It's like this kind of kindness and care in the world makes a difference. That's why I created this podcast. I created this podcast because I needed to learn how to be kind to myself, and I needed to learn how to be kind to others. And that has just so radically changed my life. I love my life now. I love what God has done in my life more than anything. And if you're not a Christian, that's not what this is about. I'm just saying that's what has made a huge difference in my life. to go from where I was to where I am. God has literally saved me from where I was at. And telling my story in my documentary, my book is literally going to blow your mind. It blows my mind because I'm amazed that I'm alive. So if this resonated with you, I really encourage you and ask you to share this with others who might benefit from this. I don't want to make content just because I created an episode, but other people can benefit from this story, how I did this show. And as always, I like to tell people, feel free to reach out with your thoughts. If you have any questions, if you have topic suggestions about kindness, let me know for future episodes. I have found one of the hardest things I've ever done right now is what I'm doing. And I'm so glad that I did. Sharing openly with honesty is huge for me. And publicly with my friends, family, I want to help others. And to see the effort that I'm putting into managing my condition with hopes that what I'm doing can help other people. That is a big reason why I'm doing it. So if you suffer from bipolar, your journey towards stability can become doable and better, and you don't have to face it alone. That has helped me so much. My hope is that it helps you. I am with you on this journey. That's how I feel. What's most important to me in my life is not how big is my following or views. It's if I could touch one person, make a difference, that makes my day. That's why being kind to people makes my day. Life is so good. It's not about how successful I am. I'm just not interested. I'm not interested in that old frame of mind that I had, the way I was. So if you enjoyed this episode, and if it resonated with you, share it. As always, feel free to leave me your thoughts or questions. I smile when I say that because I love hearing from people. So whether it's on you can connect with me on my email at visiblekindness.com. You can go to my YouTube channel for Visible Kindness, and that's been new, but it has a playlist for that. This will be there. And, you can also connect with me by, I was going to say, give me a call. You can't because I don't give my phone number out. But you can send me an email. I love connecting. I'm being lost in my thoughts. So I want to thank you for joining me today on Visible Kindness. I'm Ed Squire, and I'm going to see you next time. Take good care.